Howdy everyone, welcome back to my channel. Apologies for the lapse since my last video. Life has been lifing as it typically is around this time of year with summer approaching, but even with all the events happening offline, I've still been able to read quite a number of good books. Now, I had intentionally meant to do like an everything I've read lately, and so it was going to be like a recap of everything from February to April, May-ish, but not gonna lie, I don't really remember the books I read in February, March, April. Like I do, but not enough to do a video on it, I feel. So today we're just gonna do the books I read in May. Compromise. And I'm really trying to be okay with that with my completionist brain. Like I really want to talk about every single book I've read in every single month on this platform. But realistically, it's just gonna be a lot for me to have to go back through my notes and really put it to memory, and then I could just see myself getting stressed out. So I'm gonna avoid it. And more likely than not, these videos are going to reappear on top 10 lists, top 20 lists, etc., at the end of the year. And so overall for the month of May, I read 5 books, which I feel is really good just given everything that I've been up to in May. And I also want to preface that this is not necessarily the end of May that I'm filming this. I'm filming this the day before Memorial Day, but with that last week, I'm really doubtful that I can get another book in. And again, I really want to come back to book 2, but I missed book 2. And so let's get on with the reviews. And so the first book that I had read at the start of May was Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black. I read this via audiobook. Shout out to the Hoopla app. Shout out to my public library for being connected to Hoopla. And so in Don't Cry For Me, we see Jacob Swinton, a Black man who is spending his final days battling an illness that I unfortunately do not remember off the top of my head right now. And he's spending these final days writing a series of letters about his upbringing, the various experiences that he's encountered over his life, and essentially how that affected his parenting and how he just showed up as a father. And he's writing all these letters as a sort of parting gift for his only son, Isaac, who is someone he's had quite a bit of complicated relationship with because Isaac is a gay Black man, and Jacob very much took issue with that just because, again, given his upbringing and how he was raised. And so the two very much just clashed as Isaac grew into himself. And the series of letters is sort of Jacob's way of trying to give Isaac the closure that he needs once his father passes away. Don't Cry For Me preludes Isaac's Song, a book by Daniel Black that came out earlier this year that I had the opportunity to read the e-arc for, loved it, and me reading the books out of order didn't really make it that much of a difference in my reading experience, which I was really glad about. And yeah, going back to Don't Cry For Me in particular, it was a very painful book to listen to, full stop. Like I felt both empathy and rage for everyone involved, and it really just got me thinking about how life is so short yet complicated yet beautiful at the same time, and how when we think about our relationships, really just need to think about, okay, what is worth protecting, what is worth fighting for, and what is worth leaving as it is, and just being okay with this, just being okay with it when you leave this earth. I know that if I was in Isaac's position, I'd certainly be crashing out in the sense of just like, because I know what Isaac had felt when his father passed away, because I had read Isaac's Song before him. And so just recounting how Isaac felt in the second book and seeing how Jacob was feeling in the first book, and just like, I had just wished that there was more time for the two of them to rebuild their relationship while Jacob was still alive, and it just hurt to know that there wasn't. Second book I read in the month of May was an e-arc of The Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar by Sonora Reyes. And in this, we're following Cesar, which is Yami's brother, Yami, who we were introduced to in The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. And so we are looking at Cesar and navigating his life post a mental health emergency that we were introduced to in The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, and really just him trying to figure out what it means to be himself, whether with his sexuality, with his mental health conditions, and how that affects the way that he shows up in the world, especially with his personal relationships. Now, as you may know, when I read The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School last year, I loved it so much that I read it within 24 hours. And so when I saw that Sonora was coming out with a follow-up to that book, I was super excited. I kept my eye out, making sure like once it hits NetGalley, I'm gonna request it. And lo and behold, I did and got it. And so this book was very much an introduction to bipolar disorder for me. I haven't really interacted with much media, and I haven't seen it in my own personal life, but I can tell that Sonora did a great job in incorporating the condition with great care while not necessarily playing into harmful stereotypes and generalizations, and which is always a great thing. Like, I love when authors are able to explore very real things in a way that are so delicate and gentle and just really makes you feel seen and heard. Like, I don't believe I have bipolar disorder, but I did at times feel very much validated by what Cesar was going through and just the way that Sonora had put it out on the page. And I must admit, I had to call myself out for this one. Like, there were times where I was finding myself getting upset with Cesar just because of how he was acting and his thought processes and just what he was doing in trying to make sense of himself in the world. And I just had to remind myself, like, Dulanda, he's a teenager. He's experiencing these things for the very first time, and he's young. He's not going to know all the answers. And so, like, give him some grace. And it just really reminded me at the same time, like, in thinking about how my experiences in life and how I show up in the world, how I need to also be giving myself grace. And yeah, another great work by Sonora Reyes. I look forward to going back through their backlog and reading as many of their books as I can. The third book I read during May was an audiobook called The Trees by Percival Everett. And I'm going to try and summarize this in, I guess, family-friendly terms, because what I put in my journal is very much graphic, direct, because the book is very graphic and direct, but I don't want to, like, put it all out there for book 2. And so I guess you could say that the MBI, or the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, whatever you want to call it, is called in to Money, Mississippi to investigate a series of murders in which at every single point, there are 2 corpses, one the victim, the main victim, as well as a body of a dead black man. These different murders are popping up throughout the town and eventually reaches across the country. The MBI and then later the FBI, who comes in to help support, need to figure out, okay, why is this happening and who is making this happen? And so I really liked that I listened to this over audiobook. Percival Everett, he's such a witty and funny writer, and I really loved how this was a work of fiction, but also a good social commentary about American race relations. And there was this one chapter in particular that was very, very impactful, and to especially hear it, I was like, wow, okay, Percival, your pen game is crazy. And however, I do wish the ending wasn't so ambiguous. Like, I get it was a murder mystery type of book, and so, you know, mystery, it has to be in there, but I do wish we just got a little more detail with the ending. A little more. And, you know, this is the third book I've read by Percival Everett, who is honestly one of my favorite authors. And so if I were to rank the 3 that I've read, number 1 would be Erasure, that I read at the start of this year. Loved it. No notes. Second would be The Trees. And the third would be James. The 4th book I read in the month of May was We're Alone by Edwidge Danticat. And this is a series of essays on which Danticat is reflecting on different stages of her life and the authors whose works sort of either spoke to the things that she was experiencing at that time or were a point of solace for her as she navigated these things, because some of these events, they tackled a lot of grief, a lot of coming to terms with loss and just having to move forward after that. And in this sense, this book very much reminded me of Glory Edom's Gather Me that I read towards the end of last year, because she again was looking at different stages of her life, going as far back to her childhood, and just the authors that were helping her move forward to the next period and to the next period. This is another Edwidge Danticat read for me. This book in particular very much solidified my appreciation for her writing style, and just that she has a really great way of making the most painful things seem beautiful on paper. And it was especially important for me to have read this in May, with May being Haitian Heritage Month. And last but certainly not least, the last book that I read in the month of May was Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And I guess the best way I could summarize this is, what does it mean to live a meaningful life? What does it mean to live a life that will long live past your physical presence on this earth? Those are the 2 questions that we find our protagonist, Cyrus Shams, is looking to answer. throughout his life. He is a Iranian-American in his mid-20s. He's in recovery from both alcoholism and drug abuse, and he's also encountered quite a bit of grief throughout his short time on Earth, with his mother passing away in a tragic plane accident when he was a baby, followed by his father passing away as he was entering his young adult years. And so over time, he's really just been really trying to figure out, like, what does it mean to die a meaningful death? What does it mean to live an impactful life? Really just essentially martyrdom. That's what he's interested in. And so he sets out to write a book about all these different martyrs throughout history. He gets this opportunity to meet an artist who is essentially documenting her final days on Earth by holding this exhibition where people can come in and talk to her about life, death, whatever it is that they want to know about. And so he goes to Brooklyn where this exhibition is happening, and they have a really insightful conversation about just life, death, and everything that comes with it. And that's all I'm going to say, because this book does take an interesting turn towards the 70%-ish way of the book that really just, ooh. Now, I'm not going to lie, I finished this book yesterday. I'm still very much pondering, contemplating how I feel about it. I do know that, for one, the praise behind this book is very much well-deserved. This was my very first read of Kaveh Akbar. I'm very much interested in reading more of his works, and it definitely has me thinking about my own life, and even though I am young, and just like what kind of impact it is that I want to have on this world. Like, what do I want people to take away from my existence when it is my time to transition onwards? And I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if this book pops up again on a top 10, top 20 of my personal favorites towards the end of the year. So those are all the books that I managed to get through in the month of May, despite everything that's been happening this month. I am quite pleased with having gotten through 5 books. And if I had to pick a favorite among the 5, it'd be very hard to do. It'd be a 3-way tie between Martyr, We're Alone, and The Trees. To be honest, it's been so long since I filmed one of these videos, so I don't really remember how I normally end these off. So I guess I'll say that's all, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these books. Let me know if they've been on your TBR. I know Martyr's been pretty popular as of late, so let me know if you have read Martyr especially, and your thoughts on it. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!